Welcome everyone to Tales from the 90s, your retro time machine back to my favorite time period, the 90s. Last week we were about as early as the 90s you can get besides 1 month. We were in February of 1990. This week we're going to jump ahead in our time machine almost 8 years, actually a little over 8 years. We're going to March of 1998, so let's go. Yeah, that last week was just like, compared to this week and just all the stuff, in the world is just crazy to think about. But yeah, March of 1998, I was 14 years old and in 7th grade for the second time. Last time we were in 1998 was like 7 episodes ago. We did October. Of course, my favorite month. But this is March of 1998, and full disclosure, before I started recording this episode, I spent 45 minutes on the ground going through papers from literally over a decade ago because I dropped my memory card. Actually, I went to put the memory card in the camera, and it springs in. Well, it sprung out, and it went I had no idea where it went. And the important paper box is right here, and stuff always falls into it anyway. I was like, oh great! So I looked everywhere, couldn't find it, and literally pulled everything out of there, shook everything out, all the dust and everything, put it all back, checked the floor. Went to pull the box out to look behind it, and then I see it over to the side. Anyway, I'm glad I found it because I've got 2 videos on there. Look for those soon. Jackasses of the Week, Indiana Law and CPS edition, and I go off on that one. I also recorded another Tales from the Albums, my podcast about some of my favorite albums. I did Garth Brooks' first album, but bonus episode already came out this month. It was all about restaurants. Next month it'll be out. I forget the date, but it'll be out. I think it might be the 22nd or something, but next month's is my top 40 Tales from the Crypt episodes, and I'll have actually hopefully I'll have the opening and the closing segments with the Crypt Keeper and kind of in the video, so it'll be a really long video, but a pretty fun one. I feel like I'm about to sneeze from that dust. But anyway, there it goes. September's bonus episode is going to be all about back to school, all about my different school stuff. Speaking of that, I just found my yearbook for the 1998-99 school year. I know we're doing March of 98, but this is the 97-98, so too bad it wasn't a year before, but when I do one from that school year, I'll pull that out and I'll show you my dorky picture and just maybe go through it and look to people like, oh, I remember this, it'll be a little fun doing that. But like I said, September, my bonus episode, which, by the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I do a bonus episode once a month. It doesn't always stick to the 90s. That's why it's a bonus episode. And there's always a theme with it. Like I said, and this month was about restaurants. Next month, my favorite Tales from the Crypt episodes. Top 40 rankings of them. And they're my favorite, not like critically acclaimed, voted on stuff. September's all just different memories about how it was going back to school, the school shopping and all that, and starting a new school year, starting a new school. And October's is going to be my favorite. I think it's top 10 favorite horror anthology movies and top 10 favorite horror anthology shows. And we all know Tales from the Crypt's #1 on the shows. That's no surprise. Because last year I started my bonus episodes. The very first one was my top 50 horror movies of all time. So this time I'm doing something a little different. November is going to be, I can't remember what it is now. I'm going to look it up real quick. December's is going to be about Christmas. I'm actually going to read the book I wrote called Over the River and Through the Woods. It's about the experience at my granny's house that we all had as kids. I actually wrote a book maybe 10 so years ago. I thought it'd be fun to it's not super long or nothing. It'd be fun to just read it on here. It's basically what I do on here, just more put together, if you want to call it that. It's a book form. By the way, I am writing my autobiography, not that I'm important that I need one. It's just, I don't have something I've always wanted to just get kind of like with this, just get all my feelings out just in case one day my memory starts failing me or something, or if anybody wants to remember me, they can read all about it. But anyway, so that would be the bonus episode for December. Just me reading that book all about our Christmas experience. And I actually planned the rest of this year. Usually I come up with it last minute, but I actually planned out the rest of the year. Video games, that's November's. It's going to be not a top anything. I might give my favorites of stuff, but just talking about the different video game systems I've seen through my lifetime. Some of my favorite video games, some of the worst games, experiences playing, and just whatever I think that I'll do an outline. And anyway, sorry I'm going on and on about all these bonus stuff. You're here for March of 1998. Or you're just here because YouTube's like, here, watch this crap. Or Facebook, you have to actually search for it, I guess. YouTube, sometimes it'll just pop up. And if you're on Spotify listening to us here, you're really searching for it. But anyway, speaking of video games, we'll start off there. A couple things going on with video games. Number one, Sega discontinues the Sega Saturn in March of 98 to get ready for the release of the Sega Dreamcast, which would come, of course, September 9th, 1999. 9999. Everybody remembers that. The next year. Sega Dreamcast, everybody knows my favorite game system of all time. I love that thing. Sega Saturn, I got one used, I think after the Dreamcast was even out. And it was okay, but I didn't have much experience with it. I really loved the CD player on it. Like, it had, everybody knows I love to put songs on shuffle or random, whatever you call them. It's all called random these days, but it used to be a button on CD players called shuffle. It's the same thing. But it was like one of my favorite CD players on a video game system, if that makes sense. PlayStation was pretty cool too because the graphics, but Saturn's graphics were pretty cool. They had the basic stuff you get with like Windows Media Player from 10 years ago was like high tech then, but it was pretty cool. So I didn't have much experience playing the actual Sega Saturn. I think there was a couple games, but nothing I really remember. But Sega Saturn has been known as a flop because of Sega of Japan pressured them to put that out in North America before they were ready to. And Sega of Japan and Sega of North America are different, but they're obviously the same company. But the Sega of Japan, is above the Sega of North America. They pretty much run the thing, so whatever they say goes. So they put it out and they put games, but they didn't have didn't get the games going in time, and it was a complete flop. And really was one of the reasons why Dreamcast wasn't able to stick around, because by then people had lost faith in Sega. I mean, the Sega Genesis came out and blew everything away, was right there neck and neck with Super Nintendo. In fact, it was out before Super Nintendo. It made Nintendo come out with the Super Nintendo, I don't know if quicker than they wanted to, but probably sooner than they were going to. But it's sad the way Sega went down, but like I said, not much experience with the Sega Saturn. They were still on the Sega CD, and the Sega 32X, the add-ons and stuff. They had just come out with those, and then they come out with the Sega Saturn, and it's just too much for the marketplace, especially with the prices. And people are just like, well, I'm just gonna wait for the PlayStation, Nintendo 64. And the Sega Saturn was just pretty much ignored, and it ended up hurting sales, I think, with the Dreamcast, or otherwise Sega could have still been in business, but they decided to shut their video games down, early 2000s, and or their consoles down, and just focus on titles. But like I said, not much memory with the Sega Saturn. One video game release that came out was Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit for PlayStation and PC, and this is the first time where they made the police chases in the Need for Speed games really front and center. And I never played this game, but I played a version, I can't remember which Need for Speed it was. It was a Hot Pursuit, I think it was Hot Pursuit 2 on PlayStation 2, and that game just, graphics blow me away. That was the one where you could play, you could get chased by the cops and even be the cops and get to throw out the spike strips. So much fun playing that. But we'll move on to sports now. This is the one month of the year where there's no football or baseball. I mean, baseball, technically there was one game, or one day of baseball, because March 31st was the first game of this first day of the season for this year of 98. Obviously not now. But so I'm not really going to talk about baseball because like one game had just happened. I'll save that for the April edition. I can't even remember if I've done April already on here or not. But during this time, it was March Madness, and of course, that's the only time of year I watch basketball is to watch the NCAA tournament. My favorite team, Ohio State, of course. I'm wearing a Reds hat now, but you'd think my favorite team. But one of my favorite teams is UC, University of Cincinnati Bearcats, and then another one is Xavier Musketeers, which was actually Xavier wasn't too far from where I lived in Norwood. I don't think it's in Norwood technically. I think it's the next town over, but it's very close. But anyway, Xavier got eliminated in the first round that year. They lost to Washington 69-68. UC made it to the round of 32, which is the second round. They defeated Northern Arizona 65-62, and then they got eliminated by West Virginia 75-74. So close games there. I can't talk. Ohio State didn't even make the tournament. But UK defeated Utah 78-69 to win its second national title in 3 years. And I was joking with my wife before I started recording. This was the game in the year that she stayed up watching it while her parents were at work, and because she was a huge UK fan, and they won, and she didn't see her parents come home, so she ended up watching it and got to see a win, but she got grounded for it. But like I said, the only time I ever watched any kind of basketball at all is during March Madness, and I only watch until like I said, my three teams: Ohio State, Xavier, and UC. If they're out of the tournament, then I don't watch anymore. If they don't make it, I don't even watch it. Just basketball is one of them sports like hockey. I don't really like watching it, but I'll play it. I like playing it. I like playing the video games, and it's fun to watch it live, like in person, if I ever get the chance to do that. But on TV, I just maybe if I devoted myself to watching it. There's just so much to do and so little time, and if you're going to focus on a basketball team, and you're going to want to watch the games and stuff, I just don't have the time to devote it to that. Not that it's boring or anything, it's just it didn't really interest me. NASCAR, Mark Martin won the Las Vegas 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and this was actually the first race there. Bobby Labonte won the Prime Star 500. Prime Star, I believe, was like a satellite company at the time. Obviously didn't make it. The Prime Star 500 was at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And Dale Jarrett won the Trans-South 400. I believe that was I don't know if that's a travel company or some kind of financial company. Anyway, that was at Darlington. And then Jeff Gordon won the Food City 500 at Bristol. I believe Food City, if I can talk, Foof City. Food City was a store brand, I believe, but if I don't know, I've never been to it. But that was at Bristol, the day race at Bristol. Better. And speaking of that, I know I'm not trying to get into today's times, but it's going to be cool to see the Reds. Is it the Reds and the Cubs, I think? The Reds and the Braves. I believe it's a Reds home game, I think. But it's going to be at Bristol Motor Speedway this year. Going to actually have a baseball game there. They've set a field up and everything. It's going to be pretty cool to see. But anyway, Jeff Gordon won that race, and he would go on to win his third NASCAR title. Of course, that's decided in November. It's points. Nowadays they have it on like a playoff system or something, but back then it was just the most amount of points. So you could be like last in that race and still be a champion. But anyway, during this time I'll be talking about wrestling a little bit later because it's a big month because WrestleMania 14 happened. But during this time, I was doing a lot of wrestling at school with my friends. Like I said, this is my second time through 7th grade. I failed the first year. And it's almost like socially, I was kind of glad I did. Obviously, I didn't want to fail, but just because, obviously I'd been with those kids in school, well, some of them. Because, see, our middle school was made up of, like, 5 different elementary schools from the area. And you didn't really know any of the kids from the other ones. I mean, it was because Norwood's it's not a big city, but it's a big, I guess, suburb of Cincinnati. But it's not just like a little town where, you know everybody that goes to the school. If you didn't go to school with them, they live farther away, you normally don't interact with them. But anyway, for some of the kids, I'd been to school there since the middle of 3rd grade. But I still got along with these kids, which were technically a year behind me. I ended up making a lot of friends in that grade that I didn't really make in the other grade for some reason. But anyway, there'd be like a group of us wrestling fans, and we would just wrestle each other outside after school. One lived directly across the street. I remember this. We went over to his house and wrestled, and he had like this like mattress out in the garage, I guess, for wrestling. And he set it on fire. We were like wrestling on it before we realized we need to put this out because there's going to be big problems. He got a big bucket of water and poured it on it, and we just kept wrestling like a bunch of freaking idiots. Like we could have been in jail for arson, but no, we're going to have a flaming mattress match. Stupid. Maybe that's why I hate the freaking crappy outlaw mud show hardcore wrestling they do today with light tubes and stuff, just because of the stupid crap I did as a kid. But at least I was a kid then. I have an excuse. I'm not a grown 30-year-old smashing a light tube over another person's head and then just standing there letting them do it back to them. Anyway, I just remember just so like one day I was like one of my many days where I don't feel good, I'm staying home crap that sometimes I did without my parents' permission. But after I did that, I remembered, I was like, man, crap, I was supposed to have a hardcore match today. So, genius me, I go up there to school after school ends with a book bag full of weapons, and my weapons consisted of like a cheese grater, a cookie sheet. I always used to make this, I call it homeless homemade barbed wire, where you just take like the spiral metal in a notebook and take it out of the notebook and then like bend it to make it look like barbed wire. It was so stupid. But I was like, ooh, I'm going to be in ECW now. But I went up there to do that, and it turns out he wasn't even there that day. I went all for nothing. And it was raining. It was just the stupid stuff you do as kids, I swear. There was this one kid, I can't even remember who he was, because he was only there like half the year, and then he wasn't back the next school year. I guess his family moved or something. I don't know. But anyway, we went one of the last day of school. We had went to, I don't know, it was the second to last day of school. We went to this park. It was a really big park, and just got to go there for the whole day. It was pretty cool. I believe it was this year, the 7th grade year. So wasn't too long after this. I know sometimes I try to keep stuff within the month to keep it, all together, but sometimes I jump out of place. But anyway, we like wrestled in the woods there like the whole day, and we were like, it was like real wrestling where we were just trying to make each other, pin each other or make each other tap out. Usually it would lead to a tap out. It's hard to hold somebody down for a pin and count to 3 when they're not gonna just let you pin them. But we never, none of us either of us submitted, but then the teachers would come and be like, you can't be wrestling around here, and we would just go off and do other things, and we'd eventually end up back in the woods wrestling again 2 or 3 more times. Nobody ever won. So the last day of school, we agreed to meet outside by the baseball field to finish it, and again, it was wrestling. It wasn't like we weren't in a fight at all. Like we were friends. It's weird how you can like roll around on the ground and like be trying to pull somebody's arm, and you're not trying to break their arm, you're trying to make them give up. It's like how can you be friends with somebody you're trying to like maim until they give up? But anyway, we wrestled for like over an hour, and we had like people watching us too, which would have been really, I don't know if it was weirder that we had a whole group of people watching us, or weirder if there would have been nobody there. But anyway, nobody ever freaking submitted, or nobody won that freaking match. I don't even remember how it stopped. I think we just both got tired and just agreed to stop or something, or people left or something. I don't know. I don't even remember the kid's name. If somehow you're watching this, let's finish the match somewhere. It's just gonna be 2 80-year-old people out in the street rolling around, bones snapping, till finally the last one breathing wins. Idiot, this stupid crap as kids. And I'm sure if you weren't into wrestling, I'm sure there was stupid crap you all done out there. If you got any just dumb stories of what you did as a kid, put it in the comments. It'd be funny to read, or make a video about it even. It's funny. But we're going to go into the Nickelodeon lineup. I decided to pick a random day. It ended up being March 23rd, which was a Monday. And we will check out the lineup thanks to the fandom website, which I really love, except it's super slow on my computer for some reason. But luckily I only have it up during this, so it's not like, you know, I'm trying to do other, because I literally cannot do anything else if this page is up. Or one of these pages from the fandom. I don't know what it is about that website. But anyway, thanks to them, we get a midnight to midnight look at the TV schedule at the time. You know, and I don't know where they get this from. Old TV guides or memories or just maybe there's records somewhere online other than this. But it's a really cool look at the stuff. Starting at midnight, of course, Nickelodeon Nick at Night was on at night. We got I Love Lucy, one of my mom's favorite shows. Happy Days, love that one. The Wonder Years I never really watched. It was a newer one for Nick at Night, but I still never watched it. Taxi, another show I didn't watch. Same with Newhart. And then something I've never seen on here before. From 2:30 to 4:30 in the morning, we got paid programming. So there was actually a 2-hour block of just paid programming. I guess they wanted to make money and nobody was watching it at that time anyway. So let's put on some commercials and get paid from them. But back at 4:30, we're back with the Nick at Night. We got the Dick Van Dyke Show, the Bob Newhart Show. And then at 5:30, we start the day of Nickelodeon with Mr. Wizard's World, my favorite. I love Mr. Wizard. The episode looked like it was called Flower Explosion, probably some experiment he was doing. Learned so much from Mr. Wizard. He made science fun to somebody that didn't like science at all. Then 6, we got Inspector Gadget, great cartoon. Then we got Looney Tunes on Nickelodeon. And then we got Wake Up with Nickelodeon, but they don't have what the episodes were. So I think that was just a time slot where maybe, sort of like the You Pick in the afternoon that Nickelodeon did, I think maybe they just had just random stuff or people picked it. I don't know, but it doesn't list what they are, so sorry. I can't go back in time and find out what it is. Then at 8, we've got You're on Nickelodeon, Charlie Brown. I didn't really care for the Charlie Brown. I know it was, what? The Charlie Brown and Christmas and Thanksgiving is the best thing ever. I don't care for it. Keep your little Charlie Brown tree. I don't care. 8:30, we've got Rugrats. One of the original 3 Nicktoons. And then at 9, we start off with Nick Jr. because, you know, it's Monday, March 23rd, so everybody was at school, so Nick Jr.'s on for the preschoolers. We start off with Little Bear, one of my favorites. Then we got Blue's Clues. Of course, that was an iconic show with Steve is the only host to me is Steve. Then we got The Busy World of Richard Scarry. Love that one. It's all about all these animals and just Richard Scarry is the author. It has nothing to do with anything scary. It's just his last name. My favorite character on there was probably I can't remember his name, but the worm in the apple car. He was my favorite. Then at 10:30, we got Muppet Babies. The original one, not that new crap they came out with a few years ago. Love Muppet Babies. The Wobulous World of Dr. Seuss. Somehow I never saw that, and I've seen it on tons of schedules I've done on the podcast before, but I'd never seen the Wobulous World of Dr. Seuss as a kid. Like, for some reason I never seen it. I don't know. Then at 11:30, we've got Gullah Gullah Island, one of my favorites. And I came to find out when I was doing research for my top 50 Nickelodeon episodes or Nickelodeon shows and cartoons that it actually was an island off of South Carolina. I assumed it was somewhere over like near Jamaica or something like that. I didn't think it was actually a part of the United States, but it actually is. And it's not actually called Gullah Gullah Island. I can't remember what the actual thing is, but the culture is like the Gullah culture. And they teach you so much about their culture on the show. It was really fascinating. But in a kid-friendly way to where you don't feel like you're watching a documentary. It was really cool. And then we got Little Bear again, Blue's Clues, Allegra's Window, the show with puppets where Allegra was like the little girl puppet and, you know, you see the world from her window and then just all the adventures she goes on. It was a really fun show. Then we got Rupert. I don't remember too much about Rupert. I remember watching it, but I don't remember too much about it. Then we got Looney Tunes on Nickelodeon again. You're on Nickelodeon, Charlie Brown, Inspector Gadget. Then at 4, we got Tiny Toon Adventures. Love that one. That was a crazy one. Of course, the Animaniacs spun off of that one. But just again, another one in the Looney Tunes Merry Melodies franchise, but Tiny Toon Adventures was definitely something else. Then we got Garfield and Friends, of course, love that. And at 5 we've got Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Tale of the Water Demons was the episode. And I can't say enough about Are You Afraid of the Dark? My #1 show of all time on Nickelodeon. Rocko's Modern Life, great Nicktoon, crazy one. Then we got at 6, we've got Figure It Out. It's a game show where people would do something or accomplish something, and they'd go on there and try to stump the judges. And the judges would be like Nickelodeon. There'd be celebrities, but Nickelodeon celebrities. Not like Tom Cruise would be on there, but, you know, kids from all that, or sometimes Kenan and Kel, or Adventures of Pete, and those type shows. But they would try to figure out what it was, and if they said secret words of their head. It was a pretty fun game show. Looks like it's the only game show that they showed it that day. That sucks, because I had a lot of good ones on Nickelodeon, but of course by 98 they were phasing it all out. 99, getting ready for SpongeBob. Yay, can't you tell how much I love that cartoon? The death of Nickelodeon. Anyway, 7 o'clock, Doug, one of the original Nicktoons. And we get another episode of Rugrats. And then Hey Arnold, which everybody seems to love Hey Arnold. I never really cared for it. It wasn't that like it sucked or anything. It's just I never really cared for it. But then at 8:30, we would go back to Nick at Night. We would have, I don't know why it says new episode for Bewitched. They weren't making new episodes in 1998. Maybe it's new to Nick at Night. But then we get an hour of the Wonder Years, and Happy Days, I Love Lucy, Mary Tyler Moore Show, and then End the Day with Taxi. So that was just a little snapshot, a look at Nickelodeon. One other TV schedule I want to look at is the TGIF schedule, which, doing the research on this, was really around the time that TGIF was like not as big. It was getting kind of away from what it had been, and really it kind of had to, because there was so much more to watch these days, or those days. Like I said, the lineup I just did was from Monday. On Friday nights on Nickelodeon, they had Nickelodeon a little bit later, and of course Snick was Saturday, but there was a lot, and of course Cartoon Network was, I believe Cartoon Network was on then. So there's a lot more for kids to watch then, so TGIF really, you'll see by the lineup, really didn't put much effort into it. The first show, which is of course their big show, was Sabrina the Teenage Witch, but it was repeats of the first season, which was the year prior when it started. And then the second show was Boy Meets World. They were in season 5. This was the final year they were in high school. This was during March of '98. Was the time that Corey and Topanga had broke up because of the kiss of Lauren at the ski lodge, and that was like big news. Like, no, Corey and Topanga broke up. Like almost like women were with the soap operas. Like, so and so broke up. You know, we were all like, no, they broke up. Of course, they'd get back together, but we didn't know if they would at this time. You never know with TV shows. But one of the episodes aired, this one was like a dark one. Corey started drinking, and he got Sean to join him, and it was just a bad time for Corey. But the third show was new episodes of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And then the fourth show was repeats of Boy Meets World. So it's like they just showed a new episode like an hour ago. Now they're showing a repeat. And I don't know whether, they don't specify whether it was a repeat of the one they just showed or one of the week before. It's weird. Like I said, you can tell they weren't putting much effort into it because they weren't getting the viewership they used to. I personally believe that Boy Meets World should have been the lead show. And it turns out, because you think Boy Meets World was such a big show, turns out they were only the lead show on TGIF the final year of Boy Meets World, which would be like 2000. Like, you would have thought way before then, during the biggest years of Boy Meets World, that they would have been #1, but they put Sabrina on there, and then they put repeats, and it's just, they didn't care, okay? They didn't care. But something I care about a lot is music. And, of course, country music, my favorite, but I always like to give the pop charts, the Billboard Hot 100, #1 song for 1 week, and it was actually #1 for a week back in February, which I thought would have been, so only 2 weeks total, but I thought would have been really a much bigger song, like chart-wise, was My Heart Will Go On, Celine Dion, that is known as the Titanic song, which my brother Josh was obsessed with. I'll tell a story about that in a minute, which I told before, but it's still funny to tell again. But I mean, as big as that song was, and that movie and everything, and the soundtrack sold like crazy, and won song won Grammys. It was only #1 for 2 weeks. And this was a time before, during the early period of the decade, that was my 2-liter sounding like it's gonna explode, but it would be normal to see songs get like 10, 12 weeks at #1. Because during this time, there were songs fighting for the top position. But anyway, the other song that was #1 for 3 weeks, which was technically to the charts a better song than this, was Will Smith, Getting Jiggy With It. Just keep his wife's name out of your mouth. That's all you gotta do. Anyway, that song was supposed to be better than the Celine Dion song. But anyway, the story about that is, this was like I don't know, maybe a year or two after this came out. We were at the library in Norwood, and it was they just started coming out with like doing stuff on the computer where they had internet there. That was new there. Internet at the library was new in like 99, 2000. But where you could check out, or put books on hold on the internet then. But anyway, he got the Titanic soundtrack because, he was like obsessed with that song, and we loved the movie, but he was like super obsessed with that song. Get home, come to find out that it wasn't the soundtrack to the Titanic movie. It was actually songs that the band played, because the famous thing about the Titanic where the band played, as the ship was going down. There were songs that the band would have played on the Titanic. It was like, so it wasn't the soundtrack to the movie at all. And Josh was mad. He literally took the CD and flung it across the room. Surprised it didn't get broke or scratched up. He took it back to the library the next day. He was so mad. Oh my god. I'm gonna buy you that soundtrack, Josh, someday. Both of them, and send them to you. You didn't want to listen to orchestra music? Anyway, like I said, my favorite music was country music, and I've said it a million times. The countdown I listened to was the American Country Countdown every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. to noon, and I was usually taping it. But 2 songs both spent 2 weeks at #1. First was Roundabout Way, George Strait, one of his many over 50 #1 hits that's kind of lost in the pack. I'm going to drink my giant 2-liter Mountain Dew Code Red here, because I ain't got no Surge, which was popular at this time. Freaking love Surge. I need to bring it back. They did, but then it went away again. Come on, Coke. We want it. Anyway, Roundabout Way by George Strait, which, like I said, kind of gets lost in the shuffle of his, because it's not one of his bigger hits, but it's still a really good song in it. It made #1 for 2 weeks. George Strait, one of them ones that could have sung the phone book and would have went to #1. But the second one is one of Clint Black's last big songs, Nothing But the Taillights. Great song. It was, like I said, it was one of his last really big songs. And then there was an album that was released this month that was pretty big. It was Jody Messina's I'm Alright. It was her second album, and it was, I think it was her biggest ever. It was 2 times platinum. It actually had 5 singles released. Bye Bye, I'm Alright, and Stand Beside Me. They all went to #1. Phil Vassar actually wrote Bye Bye and I'm Alright, and a few other songs before Phil Vassar was known as an artist in his own right. He was a big songwriter, and if you check out Phil Vassar's greatest hits, he's got those on there. My Next 30 Years, which Tim McGraw did, Little Red Rodeo, which Colin Ray did. I believe there's a few others, but his versions of those songs, which are really good too. Like, that guy's a good writer, and obviously did huge for Jody Messina. But Lesson and Leavin', which was previously released by Dottie West in the 60s or 70s, I think 70s, it went to #2, and Because You Love Me went to #8. And the album was actually co-produced by Tim McGraw. He was her co-producer for a few albums. But huge album, especially for women at the time. Women were really, and country were really taking over at this time. It was, of course, the time of Shania Twain and Faith Hill, but she was right there with them, and might have even had a better voice, I believe. But it was also during this month that Garth Brooks, I'm that hillbilly now, Garth Brooks' TV special, which I believe was like his 4th TV special, if you don't count Austin City Limits and those, I'm talking network, nighttime TV for NBC. It was called Ireland and Back, where they have footage from his huge concerts that he did in Ireland, and then some of the songs from his album that just come out the year before, Sevens. A couple of those songs done live here, and just some interviews and stuff. It was a really good one. I got it on DVD with those other concerts I was talking about. This is Garth Brooks, This is Garth Brooks 2, and Live from Central Park. But yeah, this was the fourth of those. And another thing of news, which, you know, it's not really my cup of tea, but there are some songs that are catchy, and of course you couldn't not help but know who it is. But it was during March of 1998 that Dr. Dre signed an unknown rapper named Eminem, which I'm sure nobody knows him now. I don't know what I'm talking about. Nobody's heard of him. No, obviously, one of the biggest signings of all time, and one of the biggest artists, you know, on the planet. You know, whether you listen to rap or not, nobody can deny that. But I'm gonna move on to kids' meal toys, which is another segment I've added recently. Of course, everybody remembers getting the kids' meals more for the toys than the food. Because if you just got the food, you could have spent less just getting the food than you could have got the food with the toy. But everybody wanted the toys. It was during this time that McDonald's Happy Meal had the Peter Pan toys, which I never really watched the Peter Pan movie. I've seen Hook with Robin Williams, but I wasn't like big into Peter Pan. But these were like 7 toys and like different devices and stuff. They had a Peter Pan glider, which is like a thing that glides, I guess. It was like an airplane type thing. Like one of those things you threw, and it was like, I think it was made like styrofoam or something. Tick-Tock Croc toy, Captain Hook figure, Wendy and Michael magnifier, which is like a magnifying glass, an activity tool. Don't say what it is. It just says activity tool. Tinkerbell lantern cup or clip, and a Smee light, S-M-E-E. I don't know if that was a character on there or something. I don't know. Smee light. I don't know what it is. Burger King had something I didn't know a lot about. Rugrats. They had Rugrats wind-up toys. You know, just different wind-up toys. Like they had Hero on the Move Tommy, which was like Tommy crawling. You could wind up thing, and he would crawl across the floor. Of course, you know that those things always work better on linoleum or wooden floors. Those toys didn't work so well on carpet, especially thicker carpet. Kids learned that the hard way. And if that's all you had, and it's like, I got to take it outside and play with it on the sidewalk or the porch. But Tandem Triking Phil and Lil, which was Phil and Lil on like this tandem tricycle. Jumpin' Chucky, which was like, I guess would make it like hop sort of somehow. I don't know exactly. I never had these toys, obviously. Windblown Angelica, which is like Angelica and like in a Corvette. You know, one of them cars, I think it was one of them pullback ones, you know, where you pull back and it goes. If you pull back a whole lot, it'll burn you. And still, again, it doesn't work that well on carpet. And then Reptar Alive, which is a wind-up where Reptar, his arms would move and he would walk, or scoot, I guess. And the toys actually each toy came with a 12-page mini Nickelodeon magazine, which was everything that was big at that time had a magazine. You know, wrestling magazines, obviously, Sports Illustrated, magazine. It was really cool. And Wendy's had the Sound of Music toys, and I couldn't find any information about them. And I just found it weird, like, it must have been an anniversary for the Sound of Music or something, but like, it's just weird. Get off my ear, fly. That they would have like the Sound of Music toys in 1998, but there had to have been some reason for it. Move on to books now. There's a couple Goosebump books that came out this month. Of course, the original Goosebump series had been finished by now. Not the TV series, but the book series. But Give Yourself Goosebumps, which is like a choose-your-own adventure. They were on book number 26, called Alone in the Snakebite Canyon. And actually, right now, I am reading... Let's put this in front of there. Move my microphone. This one is book number 2. This is my 3rd book of these. I started with... I can't remember which one I started with. It was like a random one that the first one I found at the library and put it on hold. But then I decided that I wanted to read them all the way through. So I started with number 1. This is 2. It's called TikTok, You're Dead. And it's about, you go to this boring museum, according to you, as, you know, they make you the main character. So it works. You're choosing your own adventure. And you end up wandering off and finding this room where you can choose to go into the past or go into the future and, you know, based on what you choose, you know, the story branches out, and, you know, just, there's like over 20 different endings, I think, and, you know, I haven't gotten to a good ending where I live yet, or not stuck in the past, or I haven't gone to the future yet. I've just done the past so far. I've been killed by dinosaurs, I've been stuck in quicksand, I've been put into something where I vanished because I couldn't answer a robot's question on my test. Oh yeah, I did go in the future on that, but it was after going in the past. Anyway, check out some of those Give Yourself Goosebump books if you like to choose your own adventure. And if you don't know what choose your own adventure books are, like I just explained what they are, you read through, this isn't a book you read through all the way. You read usually the first couple pages, and then it'll tell you to go to another page, or it'll give you your first choice, and then you choose between whatever's on the page. Sometimes it's more than 2 choices. Sometimes it'll even say, like, flip a coin, or, like, the last book I read was kind of like almost a tie-in to the Horrorland book of the original Goosebump books. And it's like, if you remember what happened if you went down this slide, then, you know, you got to choose which number it is, because you got to remember what happened in that book, and if you don't know, you're supposed to guess. But anyway, the Choose Your Own Adventure books are the original ones of those. It's really cool. It's like a video game in book form. If you've never read one of those, check out Choose Your Own Adventures or Give Yourself Goosebumps. I don't know if there was other ones made of other different types of books, but awesome books. But anyway, the other book to come out was from the Goosebumps 2000 series, which was just like basically they were trying to get back to their, you know, regular Goosebumps stories. But of course, at this time, everybody's calling it something 2000, even 2 years before the millennium started. But they were on book number 3 called Creature Teacher. I've never read any of those Goosebumps 2000 books, but I would love to, obviously. We're going to talk about wrestling now. A lot going on. There was 3 pay-per-views this month because, you know, it was the time where every company was having, you know, all 3 companies, ECW, WCW, and WWF, were doing a pay-per-view a month, basically, at this time, by March of '98. Again, it sucks I'm not doing this with a Surge. I got a Surge can somewhere. I need to find it and put it on display. I kept it from when they came back a few years ago. But anyway, ECW had their Living Dangerously pay-per-view March 1st from Asbury Park, New Jersey. It was our first ever Living Dangerously. It was notable for the ECW World Television title match between Taz and Bam Bam Bigelow. Bam Bam Bigelow ended up winning after he put Taz through the ring. Taz had him in the Taz mission, and then Bigelow just went backwards. They'd done the same thing. I can't remember if it was after this or before this, but where they'd done the same thing, but they went through the ramp. I don't remember if this, like I said, I don't remember which one was first, but anyway, Bigelow was actually tapping out, but the ref didn't see it, so he ended up just basically falling down with Taz going through the ring, which ended up affecting the rest of the show. They even had to skip a match that was supposed to come next trying to fix the ring, and they never did fix it. They put some like stuff around it with a hole. They had to wrestle with a hole in the ring. This is a WWF. They would have had it changed out in 10 minutes. But anyway, Sabu defeated the Sandman in a dueling canes match, again with the broken ring. And in the main event, it was a pick your partner match, because at the time Lance Storm and Chris Candido were I believe the ECW World Tag Team Champions, and they hated each other and didn't get along. So it was at this time that they were made to find partners. Lance Storm found Al Snow, and Chris Candido found the leader of the Triple Threat, which they were in with Bam Bam Bigelow. Well, Lance Storm technically wasn't a part of it, but by being partners with Chris Candido, he was sort of a member. But anyway, I believe Al Snow and Lance Storm won the match, and like I said, it was the ring just the broken ring just limited what could be done, and they I don't know why they didn't make that the last match. It was, maybe they wanted to make it seem more realistic, because, you know, that was ECW at the time. They were trying to, like, we're the real wrestling, you know, when they're the same as everybody else, except they presented it differently. But anyway, March 15th saw WCW NWO as they were calling their pay-per-views at the time, because NWO was taking over. So it wasn't WCW Uncensored, it was WCW NWO Uncensored. March 15th from Mobile, Alabama. It was the 4th ever Uncensored. And of course, every match is supposed to be uncensored on there, but it wasn't. The main event was a steel cage match between Hollywood Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage. Ended up in a no contest after the Disciple, otherwise known as Brutus Beefcake, and his 9,000 other gimmicks. He ended up attacking the referees and stuff, so a cage match ends in a no contest on a show that's uncensored. That's WCW booking, because Hogan playing his "that don't work for me, brother" card, and Macho Man not wanting to lose to Hogan, so what are we going to do? Oh, we'll have interference, referees will get beat up, and nobody will win. Typical WCW Hogan crap from the time, and you wonder why they're still not around. And I was a WCW fan. I wanted WCW to beat WWF. So this isn't me like, oh, the WWF fanboy talking. No, I wanted WCW to win. I wanted them to have better booking. They unfortunately didn't. And a lot of it had to do with Hogan and his creative control. But anyway, one company that was super red hot at the moment, and WCW was actually hot at the time too. It was, it wasn't like they were like late 90s, early 2000 WCW. They were still pretty big. Both companies were doing really good, and ECW was like obviously third place, but they didn't have even half the budget of the other companies, but they were still doing really good for the budget they had. And starting out with just getting on pay-per-view the year before. The drink, because I got a frog in the throat. But on March 29th, we had WWF WrestleMania 14. Of course, the biggest show of the year. This was from Boston, Massachusetts. A lot going on in this show. WWF European Champion Triple H retained his title. He beat Owen Hart. Of course, he'd won the title like a couple weeks before from Owen on Raw. Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie. For some reason, Terry Funk did that goofy Chainsaw Charlie gimmick with a pantyhose over his face. I guess he's supposed to be like a redneck-er, homeless-er version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Anyway, I can't get this frog out of my throat. Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie defeated WWF Tag Team Champions and New Age Outlaws to win the titles in a dumpster match, where you literally have to put your opponents in the dumpster. And then the next night on Raw, although it wasn't shown till the next week, because WWF was still doing this stupid tape one Raw, do a live Raw, but taping the one for next week before they had to do everything live, because WCW was giving away all their endings. They were still doing that into 99, I think, the beginning of 99. But anyway, so technically they lost them the next night, but it would air the following week. The Undertaker defeated Kane in their first ever match, of course, at Bad Blood, September, the September prior to this, what was that? Like 6 months before, is when, of course, the whole story with that, everybody knows that, but if you don't know, Paul Bearer was Undertaker's manager, and he had split from Undertaker in '96 and joined Mankind, who was Cactus Jack on this show, Mick Foley, Dude Love, all those characters. But anyway, he'd been feuding with the Undertaker off and on, but all of a sudden he told Undertaker that his brother's still alive, Kane being his brother. And Undertaker's like, no, he's not, and like, don't bring this up. And it turns out that Kane was still alive, and he came out and attacked Undertaker at Bad Blood during the very first Hell in a Cell match, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. Ripped the cage door off, and that started their feud. And for a while, Undertaker didn't want to fight his brother. And of course, the whole story was that Paul Bearer was Kane's real father. That was eventually revealed, but apparently Undertaker started the fire that burned up the funeral home where they all lived, where Paul Bearer was just a young funeral director there. Fun fact, the guy that played Paul Bearer, William Moody, was actually a licensed mortician. But anyway, the story was Undertaker set the place on fire. Was an accident or something, but killed his mother and father and burned his brother up, and he thought he was dead. It's wrestling. That's all I can say. It's wrestling. But anyway, they finally had their match here at WrestleMania 14, and Undertaker got the win. Of course, Undertaker was defeated at WrestleMania forever till, I think it was, 30? To the Brock Lesnar match, but I don't want to talk about that now. I'm going to bring this podcast down. Sorry, it's going on forever. But anyway, and then the main event was seeing the Austin era has begun, as JR would say on commentary famously. Stone Cold Steve Austin won the Royal Rumble. Actually, no, what was it? I think Vince, was that the year Vince? No, that was next year. I'm confusing them. The next year, Vince ended up winning the Royal Rumble, and then Stone Cold. Okay, I got it mixed up. Because I was watching WrestleMania 15 last night, and I was like, I was confusing story from that to this. No, Stone Cold won the Royal Rumble this year, 98, and went on to face Shawn Michaels for the WWF title. And of course, that was Mike Tyson was there at the Royal Rumble, and then the next night he comes out on Raw, and Stone Cold, was like, it's my ring. I won the Royal Rumble. I should be out here, and got into a shoving match with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson ended up joining DX, which Shawn Michaels and Triple H with China, and they ended up putting Mike Tyson as the special enforcer, which was in wrestling. That's if you're a special enforcer, you're like on the outside just to make sure nothing happens, like any rules get broken. And if a referee goes down, you're allowed to get in there and be a referee. Yes, Andy Shades, a special enforcer is allowed to be a referee. We're still arguing about that 2 years after our match. Anyway, Shawn Michaels ended up, Stone Cold ended up beating Shawn Michaels, but the referee was down. But even though Stone Cold and Mike Tyson had been feuding, Mike Tyson still got in there and counted to 3, which pissed off Shawn Michaels because they were in DX together, and he thought he was going to help him, so he ended up knocking Michaels out. And of course, Shawn Michaels would retire for the next 4 years because of he had a back injury, because at that same Royal Rumble where Stone Cold won, what? My dog don't like me telling the story. But anyway, that was the match between Undertaker and Shawn Michaels for the title in a casket match. And Undertaker threw Shawn Michaels over the top rope, and he hit his lower back on the edge of the coffin. It really started the damage that led to Shawn Michaels being out for 4 years. But that was the night Undertaker actually had decided to face his brother at WrestleMania, because Undertaker had eventually been put in the coffin, and Kane set it on fire, and that was what finally made Undertaker. Anyway, I forgot that part earlier. But anyway, that was, like I said, the Austin era has begun. The next night on Raw was a big night too, because the night after Raw is always big. But storyline wise, this might have been like the biggest one ever. It was where they had Stone Cold come out. Vince hated him because of the stuff with not listening. He'd given him a stunner the year before, but it was before heel Vince. And this is still a little bit before heel Vince, but the night after Raw is really when that started. Because, he wanted Stone Cold to fit the corporate image. He wanted him to wear a suit, and he came out in a suit. They gave him that new WWF title, the one that the strap on it was blue at first, but then I guess they changed it to black because it looked better, especially with Stone Cold. But he ended up taking the suit off and hitting Vince in the balls, and their feud was off, and that was you talk about a hot period in wrestling. That was what really kicked it off. But also the next night was, of course, like I said, Shawn Michaels had to retire, so he was gone. So Triple H basically turns face pretty much. He had started to already, because DX was technically heels at the time. But the next night put it in full effect. He said, Shawn Michaels is gone. I'm the leader of DX now. And, who do you look to? You look to your friends and your blood. So he brought X-Pac back, which, of course, had been previously known as 1-2-3 Kid when he was there. He went to WCW and became 6 because he was the 6th member of NWO. And by the way, if you know nothing about wrestling, I'm probably just, everything I'm saying is going over your head. I'm sorry. I'll be done with wrestling soon. But anyway, this was the time I could talk about this for days. But he brought him in as X-Pac, and then later that night ended up the New Age Outlaws ended up joining them, which it helped DX for a few weeks before, but they officially joined. So that would be DX, and then of course China, like I said, and huge, massive baby faces, as known, and good guys in wrestling. Even though they still had that edge to them, and their battles with the Nation of Domination were hilarious and legendary. But yeah, that was WWF WrestleMania 14, one of the pivotal ones. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit, not too much TV news that I hadn't already talked about. One show that was ending was Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation. And I know a lot of people just like crap all over that show, and it's not the greatest show in the world. But, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's the live-action Turtles TV series. It only lasted a year, or a season. It had Venus, the female turtle, and just the weird enemies on it. It was just, and of course they crossed over with Power Rangers on the Power Rangers, which is like the best part of that. But they should have just kept it more traditional Turtles type. They could have even added the female turtle. That wasn't really the problem. It was just the problem was the enemies and just the weirdness of it. And it just I couldn't tell whether they were trying to be serious, they were trying to be funny, you just couldn't tell. Better writing behind that would have really saved that and could have made that series last. But yeah, it ended in March of '98. And speaking of ending, we're done. But next time, I can't believe we're going to be on episode 40. Getting close to a year's worth of these episodes. But next week, episode 40, we're going to go back in time about 5 years. We're going to go back to April of 1993. Last time I was in 93 was just 4 episodes ago. It was a December 93 episode. But at this time, in April 93, I was 9 years old in the 3rd grade and was just getting settled into Norwood. Like I was talking earlier about knowing those kids since 3rd grade. It was like the middle of 3rd grade that I moved to Norwood. But it was April 93 at this time. I was just getting settled into Norwood. Really, things hadn't gone too bad with my stepdad, Marky Foe, yet. That's the first time I mentioned him in this podcast. Usually he gets a mention all over the place. What, Tails? My dog Tails down there. Speaking of dogs, I really miss my dog from Norwood. Didn't have him at this time. Well, this time I did, in 98, yeah. We're still on that. We're not on 93 yet. That's next week. But my weenie dog, Larry, he ended up going to my cousins, Mallory, Jessica, and Adam, after we moved out of Marky Foe's, and we just couldn't have him at Granny's because that's where we were living. Spending our time between Granny's and living at a hotel so that way Granny didn't get overwhelmed with all of us there. But, we just couldn't have the weenie dog there. I miss him. Little Larry Lee. The first dog I think I remember falling in love with. Wonder why I have a bunch of weenie dogs running around now. Tails went, "Rrr." Oh, I still love you, Tails. He's like, I wasn't your first love. You're not even the first dog here. What are you talking about? He's down there growling. Hold on a second. Come here, Tails. Come here, Tails. He's barking at me. He won't come near me. Hi, Tails. Too netted. You wanted to be on here so bad. Here you go. Here's Two's Nevin. That's our little... He's a Cheweenie. That's a half Chihuahua, half Dachshund. Known as a Cheweenie. A Cheweener. He's always whining. He's had a hurt leg recently, but he's doing better today, it seems. You give him a kiss. Good boy. Yeah, he's a good boy. He's not our oldest. Or our one that's been here the longest, even. That's Tiny. But he's the second one. He's the second doggy we got. And it was actually between him and his brother. And I actually was the only one between me and my wife and 2 kids that they all chose him. I chose his brother just because he looked so pitiful and like sad. I guess I just felt for him. And it was a good thing I didn't win that because he ended up... Ow, you're scratching me to death, Chili. Mother dog. I'll show a dog a week. But, yeah, he, I don't know why. We'll pretend you're from the 90s, okay? You're a really old dog, Tails. You're about 9,000 in dog years. He probably feels like it. But anyway, that dog ended up having parvo, and if we hadn't have got him, he would have gotten it. So we got him just in the nick of time, and the other dog was going to die no matter what, sadly. But we got Mr. Twos here, as we call him. His name's Tails, but I call him Twos Nebba. Or sometimes Cackhead Never, because I make him mad, and he goes, Cackhead Never. Oh, he's going to be nice now. He ain't going to be Crackhead Never. You going to see Crackhead Dude? Anyway, Wave goodbye to the people. We actually got this one under an hour. If I stretch it out, it'll be an hour, but I won't. Wave goodbye to the people. Say, you watching Tales from the 90s. That'd be crackhead never. Say bye. Come bye.